Introduction. In the grand sweep of human history, certain years stand out for triumph, discovery, or transformation. But the year 536 AD stands out for a far darker reason. Many historians call it the worst year to be alive. It was the year when the sun dimmed, temperatures dropped, crops failed, and societies trembled on the edge of collapse. For months, people across Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia witnessed a mysterious phenomenon they could neither understand nor explain. A sun that gave light but no warmth. A ghostly disk floating behind a veil of ash. What exactly happened in 536 AD? And why did this single year send shockwaves that shaped centuries of world history? This is the story of a global catastrophe, pieced together through medieval writings, modern science, and the silent testimony of ice buried deep in Greenland. 1. Voices from the past. The sun turns pale. The earliest clues about the disaster come from eyewitnesses, chroniclers whose writings offer a haunting insight into that dark year. Byzantine historian Procopius. Procopius, writing during the reign of Emperor Justinian, noted, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during the whole year." He described a mysterious veil covering the sky, blocking sunlight, and leaving the days dim and cold. Procopius was not prone to exaggeration. He was documenting war and politics. Yet even he could not ignore the alarming natural phenomenon. Michael the Syrian. Centuries later, Michael recorded older accounts. The sun was dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. When we saw the sun fading, we thought the end of the world was near. Irish annals, medieval Irish records, speak of a failure of bread, describing widespread crop failure and famine beginning precisely in 536. These accounts, coming from different places and different cultures, confirm one thing: something enormous and global had happened. 2. A world without sunlight. Ice core samples from Greenland and Antarctica, analyzed by climate scientists, give a scientific explanation. In layers dated to 536 AD, researchers found massive amounts of volcanic ash, high concentrations of sulfur, particles that match explosive eruptions. These findings suggest that a huge volcanic eruption, possibly multiple eruptions, darkened the skies worldwide. The most likely culprit. Researchers today suspect the eruption came from one of these volcanoes: Iceland, a candidate due to chemical signatures; Ilopango in El Salvador; Rabaul in Papua New Guinea. The Icelandic theory is currently the strongest. Iceland's volcanoes are perfectly positioned to send ash across the northern hemisphere. The eruption was so powerful that it blasted millions of tons of ash and sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. There, the particles formed a global aerosol veil, reflecting sunlight back into space. This caused continuous dim daylight, dramatic cooling, crop failure, and social unrest. The aerosol cloud was so dense that it lingered for more than a year. 3. The coldest decade in millennia. Tree ring data, or dendrochronology, confirms the medieval chronicler's fears. Trees grew extremely slowly in 536, 537, and 538, indicating severe temperature decline. Climate scientists estimate 2 to 4 degrees Celsius drop in global temperature. Some regions experienced summer frosts. Snowfall occurred in China in summer months. This plunge marked the beginning of the coldest decade in 2,000 years. For agricultural societies, such cooling was devastating. Wheat, barley, and grapes failed to ripen. Livestock weakened. Food shortages rippled across continents. 4. The Justinian Empire in crisis. The Byzantine, Eastern Roman Empire suffered severely. Emperor Justinian had hoped to restore Roman glory, but the son's disappearance brought catastrophe instead. Economic strain. Crop failure led to grain shortages, rising prices, and famine. The empire needed food imports from Egypt, but even those harvests were poor. Military conflict. Justinian's wars in Italy and North Africa drained the treasury. Darkened skies and cold weather weakened armies and disrupted logistics. And then came the plague. In 541 AD, just 5 years after the sun faded, the Justinianic plague erupted. Carried by rats and fleas, it spread through Constantinople, killing up to 40% of the population. Although not directly caused by the 536 event, the weakened food supply and unstable climate created ideal conditions for plague spread. Some historians believe the eruption indirectly set the stage for one of the deadliest pandemics in history. 5. Europe's descent into famine. Europe was heavily dependent on predictable growing seasons. When the summer temperatures dropped dramatically, crops failed everywhere. Ireland. The Annals of Ulster record a failure of bread lasting from 536 to 539. Scandinavia. Archaeologists studying Swedish and Norwegian settlements have found abandoned farms and signs of starvation. Some scholars argue this period contributed to religious and social upheaval, possibly accelerating the transition from paganism to new social structures. Britain. Much of Britain was still fragile after the fall of Roman rule. The climate event worsened local instability, contributing to migrations and conflicts between Britons, Saxons, and Picts. For ordinary people, the suffering was immediate. Food shortages, weakened immunity, higher mortality, social unrest. Some communities collapsed entirely. 6. China and the East. Snow in summer. Chinese historical texts also describe disturbing events. Texts from the northern dynasties. Records mention dust rain, solar dimming, summer frosts, locust swarms, widespread famine. One Chinese chronicler states, "Yellow dust rained down, and the sun became faint." China's agricultural system depended on stable monsoons, which the eruption disrupted. As a result, millions suffered from hunger and disease. Japan. Although fewer written records survive, tree ring data shows similar cooling trends. The Arabian Peninsula. Arab sources, such as the writings of the Syriac chroniclers, describe dim skies and poor harvests. The darkness did not discriminate. It touched nearly every part of the northern hemisphere. 7. The Americas. A possible trigger in El Salvador. While the effects of the 536 event were strongest in Eurasia, the Americas were far from unaffected. The Ilopango eruption in modern-day El Salvador is one of the largest volcanic eruptions in the last 7,000 years. Some scientists date its eruption to around 539 to 540 AD, close to the 536 event. If correct, this means the world may have been struck by multiple massive eruptions in rapid succession. The Maya civilization, though resilient, experienced upheaval during this period, including city abandonments, population shifts,
decline in agricultural productivity. This suggests a multi-year climate disaster across continents. 8. How people understood the darkness. Medieval societies lacked scientific explanations. They interpreted the darkened sun through religion, superstition, and prophecy. Christian regions. Many believed the dimming was a sign of divine punishment or the end times. Churches filled with frightened people seeking forgiveness and salvation. Norse and Germanic regions. Stories of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, may have been influenced by this era of darkness and cold. Middle Eastern and Asian beliefs. Some saw it as an omen of dynastic change or cosmic imbalance. People looked at the pale, ghostly sun and thought the world was dying. In a sense, a part of the old world truly was